Hey, it's John Nemo. Welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. It's been a little bit since I've done an episode, but I thought, what better time to jump back into the podcast than now when I just had a colossal failure? Because listen, if my misery can serve as motivation for you to improve your processes, to get more sales, to get more revenue, who am I to stop you from turning my suffering into sales success for you? So all kidding aside, listen, I know it does. Like a good business failure is like a car crash, right? We all rubberneck, we all gawk, we all slow down in our daily process to look over and go, whoa, what happened, right? And honestly, all kidding aside, you learn so much from failure. And if you have to do sales at all for your own business or someone else, you know that so much of sales is failing over and over and over again, and then trying to figure out how to improve. One of the things, it's crazy because I've been doing my own sales since 2012. When I started my own business, when I left my day job. And prior to that, I had no sales training, no sales experience. I worked corporate jobs in public relations and, things like that. And I've obviously over the years read a lot of books on sales and, learned a lot and had great coaching and great trainings. And one of the things that I do today that's really helpful here right now in this moment is using AI. So what I do is I literally take every sales call that I do, and it's a video call, right? Nowadays, we're all doing video calls, and I'm able to record it. And I use a tool called Fathom, Fathom. I don't know if you've heard of it. There's a million tools. The one I use is called Fathom. It records the sales call video for you, and it does a transcript, basically almost in real time. And then, of course, it has notes and insights and all that stuff. But what I love about it is as soon as I hang up from the call, I now have a transcript right there from Fathom of me talking, the prospect talking, every word that was said. I go over to ChatGPT, and what I do is I've created a project in there, and I call it sales, like a sales folder. If you use AI at all, one of the things now, and I even hesitate to talk about AI because it changes every 2 seconds, but one of the things you can do now, like in ChatGPT and other ones, is you can create a folder. And in that folder, it can have a bunch of project files or documents. So what I've done is I've basically, uploaded and shared, hey, here's my business. Here's the products and services I sell. Here's, the common FAQs on sales calls. Here's the biggest objections I hear time and again. I basically downloaded, 12 plus years of sales experience for my company into written form and put it into the AI to kind of educate it. And this is another tip if you're using AI, which I highly recommend. I use it in every aspect of my business. The more you can educate the AI, the better results you get. It's not about necessarily, in my experience, being some kind of prompting ninja or guru. It's about teaching it. If you think about AI as a person, that's a helpful way to do it. So I use AI as a sales coach. Well, how good is my sales coach going to be if they know nothing about me, John Nemo, right? So if I just handed my real life sales coach, a person, a transcript, a printout of a call and said, give me feedback, they could give feedback tactically on the words on the page, but they don't know me as a person. They don't know my personality. They don't know my communication style. They might not know anything about my business, the product I'm selling, what makes me unique, different, and better, how I market myself, what my funnel looks like, how I qualify people. So all that long way of saying, the more you can educate AI, and it takes time to do, of course, but the more you educate it, you now build kind of expertise within that agent, that AI agent, ChatGPT, Claude, whoever you use, to kind of coach you. So what I did in this case, I completely flamed out on a sales call, and I knew during the call, and that's what's hard. It's like sales is like, I would say, like performing on stage or playing in a sporting event, like a baseball game. Like it's live. Like you don't get a do-over. You don't get to hit pause on a live sales call and be like, you know what? I'm kind of stumbling around here today. Let me get my head on. Like you're in it, right? It's sloppy. It's messy. Whether you flub a line or forget something, you got to recover quickly. And I think that's the hard part of sales. So many sales trainers I see online and gurus, they want to make it all formulaic. If then, if they say this, here's a script, here's a tactic, here's a bullet point, no, like you're still dealing with human beings. It's still art to me more than science. And what I have found in over 12 years of doing sales and building a 7-figure company by myself, doing 7 figures of sales a year, is you've really got to understand people. Now, the great thing about this is you don't need any special training to understand people. You just need to really understand people. And it's very, like, what I would say the most influential and helpful trainings I've gotten for sales would be Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that book. Another great book is Les Giblin, How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People. And this is a little side note, but it's crazy to me when so much of your success in life comes down to your ability to handle people, how little we actually teach that growing up to our kids, right? There's no class in school, high school, or even college of how to win friends and influence people. In fact, Dale Carnegie, when he wrote the book, was like, the reason I'm writing this book is I surveyed and went around all these colleges. Nobody's teaching how to handle people as a course, as a class. There's psychology, right? Human beings and psychology and how we think and do what we do, but nobody's translated that into a practical, simple, actionable, day-to-day language. I learned this the hard way throughout my career so many different times. I remember getting fired from a job. I've told the story before, and I'm going on a little side note, but you don't care. At the height of the US recession in 2008, 2009, I got fired from my job for writing an angry email. And I had won all these national awards. I was the public relations guy for a trade association at the time. I won national awards. I got us on CNN and Fox and NBC. I literally was, peak performer. I couldn't have done any better at my job. I had just gotten a $10,000 raise like a couple weeks earlier, but I got into a battle with some people on our executive team about whether or not we should use this new tool called social media. I was all in. Remember, this 2008, right? And I'm like, we need to be active on Facebook and Twitter and all these. This is the future. And the old guard was like, no, we need to have a lawyer review every tweet, and we need to slow down, and we can't respond to people online in these forums. We have to have everyone, review and approve every comment. And I remember making this mistake of getting into an email battle with some of the old guard. And I didn't curse or act crazy at all, but I just wrote an emotional email, what are you doing? You're holding us back, or things where basically it could be interpreted again in writing, dude, chill out, you're, arguing or whatever. Cause I get emotional, I get excited. And what ends up happening was, despite winning all those awards, I got fired from that job. So I wrote the email on a Friday. I came in Monday, I got fired. And it was at the height of the recession. My wife, Sarah, was at home. We had 3 boys under the age of 10. She wasn't working, and we had no savings. So I remember falling to the kitchen floor and just sobbing, what am I going to do? Oh my God, what have I done? And it was all because of my inability to handle people. Now, the good news is within a week, I was able to get 2 new job offers, and I ended up taking a new job where I actually got a $25,000 raise. I could do that as a separate podcast. But basically what happened, long story short, was because I was so into social media at the time in 2008, 2009, I was able to immediately apply for jobs and go above and beyond with how I approach people and the different, things I did. And I even, created public relations plans and kind of did work for free as part of the application process to kind of impress the potential employers. Hey, I went on your website, reviewed all your content. I actually wrote up a PR plan for you for this role that you're hiring for. I'd love to bring that in. And that's what ultimately ended up getting me this other job that paid me more money. So within a week, I was employed again, thank God. But I never forgot that lesson. And later on in my corporate career, I again ran into a boss who I just had the hardest time with, and was constantly threatening to fire me, and all these different things. And no matter how good I performed, things were bad. And at the time, I read a book called Power by a guy named Jeffrey Pfeiffer, and I think he spells his last name Pfeffer. And it was a book called Power: Why Some People Have It and Some People Don't. And it was all about, in the corporate workplace, your ability to handle people makes you rich, right? And it was all about, if you understand how to handle relationships with your boss, with your coworkers, other areas, you will elevate and move up the ranks much more so than performance. Like this guy, Jeffrey Pfeiffer, he's like a Stanford professor. He studied all these corporate workplaces and found performance didn't matter. It was all about the relationships people had. And that's why it was so frustrating for high performers, high achievers, to see less qualified people getting promoted ahead of them. And it was simply because the less qualified people knew how to handle relationships better. All that to say, that has a huge role in sales today. So I get into a call, and what I have found in 12 years of doing this is so much of sales still comes down to emotions and relational kind of connection. And where I whiffed on the call today, and where ChatGPT points it out, right? Again, I put in the transcript of the call right away, and I say to ChatGPT, act as my sales coach, read this transcript. Here's some info on the prospect I just talked to. Why do you think it failed? And it was like, oh, well, this call failed because you didn't make the emotional connection with this person. It was not about logic on this call. It was about them not feeling like safe emotionally and that they could trust that you were different. And here's what I mean. And this is something that's really hard to overcome, at least in my industry. I obviously run a done for you LinkedIn lead generation agency. Okay. That's what Nemo Media Group does. We go out on LinkedIn, we get you leads. We've had tons of success. We've had tons of testimonials. We've had people getting 5 and 6 figure sales. We've been doing it since 2012, all this great stuff. But so often, and here's where a couple of red flags came up on this call and how my misery will be motivating for you to avoid, and a good lesson for me. Number one, this person came in unfamiliar. So one of the things I've developed, and I've put all this, I need to go back and read my own book. I put all this into my book, LinkedIn Riches, which I republished this year, expanded, revised, updated. You can get a free copy of LinkedIn Riches in the show notes. I have a link to a free digital copy. And basically, you can get the audiobook for free, the PDF for free, or the Kindle version for free. In fact, I'm going to go reread it because I was like, oh, I forgot my own, approach. And one of the core things I've learned is pre-qualifying people. So meaning before I get on a live sales call, I have people fill out a short type form, an online form. And I basically, one of the key questions in there I say is, how familiar are you with Nemo Media Group and our process? Scale of 1 to 10. 1 being I've never heard of you, I just found you on Google. 10 being I'm a super fan, I've read your book, I followed you for years, I listened to your show, your podcast, whatever. Because obviously, the more familiar someone is with you, the easier it is to close a deal because they already know, like, and trust you. This person came in on a scale of 1 to 10 as a 0. So a complete 0. And in my haste, I didn't start with that. I marched right past that red flag, and on the sales call went into the other process about, hey, here's how it works, and here's the logic, and here's the process. And I didn't start with, hey, it looks like you're very unfamiliar with us. How did you find me? What do you know about us? Let me just get the lay of the land in terms of how familiar you are. Because again, at the human cave person brain level, this prospect didn't know, like, or trust me. So they're looking at me going, well, I don't know if you're a big deal, if you're really good at what you do, if you're legit and all this. And it came out on the call because they even said, hey, I went on your website and I looked at your testimonials. Some of these people that left testimonials, I can't find a website associated with them. So I'm not saying you're a liar, but like, I don't know if they're real people. And I was like, yeah, they're real people, but not all my clients have a full website because some are just individual coaches or consultants that frankly don't need a website. Like they just use their LinkedIn profile plus messaging, or maybe you didn't, Google their name. I don't know. Like one of the things I'm very careful about with testimonials is I want you to be able to verify all my people. I have their full name. I have their company name, usually their job title. And they're all on LinkedIn for sure, because they're all, LinkedIn lead generation clients. So you can always find them on LinkedIn. But some of them don't have websites, or they have outdated sites, or, they don't use it. Especially a lot of our coaches and consultants, they don't have a full website, or they take it down because it's outdated. And what I found, and this is an aside, like most coaches and consultants don't need a website. Like it's just kind of a check the box thing. It's much more about their individual LinkedIn profile and connecting, with a prospect one-to-one, because you're hiring the person. You're not hiring a big company with a website. Anyway, because this person was a 0 in terms of familiarity with me and Nemo Media Group, they came in skeptical. Like, are these even real testimonials? Are they made up? And then the other thing that I kind of stumbled with on this call was a common objection that I hear all the time that I still struggle with how to deal with. So here's what it is. The prospect came in and was like, hey, listen, like I've worked with other marketing agencies. I've worked with other LinkedIn lead gen agencies, and it hasn't gone well. I've spent X amount of dollars and I got 0 sales. So what you're telling me, John, all sounds good, but that's what the last guy said. They all promised all this and then it didn't work, And now what I did in this case was I kind of rushed ahead. I was like, well, hey, Here's why we're going to be able to do a better job, and da 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 da. What I need to do is back up, and instead of telling the person and kind of dealing with the objection on the surface level, I need to get more into the emotional, and you do too. If you want to close more deals, what I needed to say to the person was kind of come alongside them in a discovery mode. So part of what I did well, and that I try to do on every call, is build empathy. So I was like, well, hey, I'm really sorry to hear that. It sounds like you've had a rough experience with other vendors and agencies. If it's helpful to share my own experience, and this is a true story, when I was first starting out with Nemo Media Group in 2012, I spent money I didn't have, putting it on personal credit cards, $45,000 I spent on Facebook ads. I used 3 different Facebook ad agencies. I paid for all these ads, 45 grand. I made approximately 0 sales. And to this day, if you say Facebook ads, I run the other way. I mean, it was awful. It was painful, right? I've had other negative experiences with, even hiring accountants where clients didn't get billed, or we accidentally paid a contractor twice, or, tax people where they forgot to do something. I got a huge tax bill. And so I have also had those negative experiences where I've tried to hire someone for a service that I absolutely need, such as lead generation or taxes or accounting or bookkeeping or whatever, and had bad experiences. What the problem is the prospect comes in with all that emotional baggage, and then you kind of get punished for the past sins of other people. Meaning, this person came to me, they're not familiar with me, they haven't read my book, they don't know, like, or trust me, they're a 0 in familiarity, and they're like, yeah, I've been burned before, so I don't really know how I can trust you. And so then they're thinking in terms of, and given your pricing, boy, that just, I don't know. And in this case, it was interesting because the prospect even said on the call, he's like, the price isn't the issue at all. Like, I have the money, I can do it right now. It's more just, I got to really think about, are you going to be any different than the other experiences, right? Because I've spent all this money before and got nothing out of it. And that was where I kind of missed the opportunity in my own book. And now I go back and see it. And this is why I'm processing it here with you guys. So you can learn, is come alongside them at that point. And what I should have said was, okay, well, let's stop on that for a second. Rather than me trying to object and argue with him and, this prospect, say, okay, well, based on everything I've told you, I've outlined our process today. Does it sound different than what other people have done before? Because if what I'm saying we're going to do for you on LinkedIn is the exact same verbatim to the letter approach that other agencies have taken and it failed, then maybe the agency isn't the problem. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe it's and I wouldn't say it that rudely, but maybe you're the issue. Maybe it's your business model. Like for me, the Facebook ads was not the fault of the agencies. It was not the fault of the ad copy. It was not the fault of the design. It was the wrong platform for me. I was trying to sell LinkedIn courses at the time, online do-it-yourself LinkedIn lead gen courses on Facebook, because at that time, 2012, 2013, 2014, that was the rage. Facebook ads, print money, run ads on Facebook to an automated webinar, and you'll sell your online course and you'll be a millionaire with a Lamborghini, right? That's what all the gurus were telling me, but it was the wrong fit, right? For me, I've always had more success selling my online courses through live webinars, or imagine this, on LinkedIn. Because people are on LinkedIn wanting to use LinkedIn to get leads. So why not sell to them on LinkedIn how to use LinkedIn? So in that case, I was the issue, right? So what I could have done was come alongside this prospect and say, well, take me through what the other agencies did. Is what I'm offering today, as far as our approach, our service, does it sound dramatically different? Does it sound exactly the same? And the idea being, let the prospect kind of discover, right? Because again, in their brain, they have to go, well, this would be different. Okay, well, because again, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Whereas if the prospect can see, oh, okay, well, if I hire John and Nemo Media Group, what they're doing on LinkedIn is pretty different than what the other guys did. For example, everything they're doing is hyper custom, and they've got this high-end team, and they don't do a bunch of these other things that these other people did. Okay, well, then I feel a little bit more confident that maybe different action could lead to a better result. So that's where I kind of missed the mark. And the other thing too is just trying to get into that emotional headspace that people have, and basically saying, okay, well, it's rather than me trying to sell this to you, like, what are your options? Like, do you need to do this? Is it super urgent right now? And that's another place I failed, was to kind of get into the urgency and the pain of, like, the prospect kind of said, like, business is fine, but I know that longer term, I can't just live off referrals and I've got to get a more steady pipeline of leads coming in. That's why I'm looking at trying to hire an agency to help. So I could have come alongside the prospect and said, okay, well, let's evaluate your options. If you do nothing, that's option one. If you hire an agency, what have other agencies done that have failed? What are we proposing to do? And is it different enough so that you feel comfortable that, you could probably get a different result? So all that to say, there's so much nuance to this. Give yourself grace, which is what I'm doing. The beautiful thing about sales and the beautiful thing about lead generation, which is what I do every day, is there are literally limitless opportunities. It's not like you get 5 sales calls a month and then that's it and you have to wait for the next month. Like, the beautiful thing about LinkedIn lead generation and what I've been doing since 2012 is there's an infinite amount of opportunity out there. It's just a matter of improving each time that you do a sales call, learning from your mistakes, and then trying to, get going with the next time and going, okay, so now on my next call, which I have in like an hour, I'm going to remember, okay, start with the emotions. How are they feeling? Had they been burned before? Is there an urgency level here? Is it super important to them to solve this? Are they more just in kind of exploratory mode and there's not a lot of urgency? Because you want to get all that figured out before you get into pricing and terms and deliverables. Because again, if they're not emotionally ready, then none of that logic matters. Like, even in this example, I was able to say to the prospect, like, literally, if we got you one client in 90 days of work, it would double your investment with us. Like, we're going to reach out to 27,000 people. If you close one deal, you'll double your ROI. And they're like, yeah, I get it. The numbers are fine. I just don't know if I feel comfortable with you. It's like, stupid emotions. But that's the key. That's the key to understanding sales, is really getting into, improving your process. Try that with AI. Take your transcripts, put it in there. I have found that really helpful. And what I also do with ChatGPT is, it'll break down the sales call for me. I'll give it an identity, act as my sales coach, tell me what I could have done better. But then I'll also say, okay, help me follow up with this prospect. What should I send as a follow-up email? What would you suggest? And it's good because it'll say, well, the prospect was definitely saying A, B, and C on the call. Those are definite indicators they're feeling X, Y, and Z. So you don't want to send a message that will push into that. You want to send a message that empathizes with it, et cetera, and it'll write up a good follow-up. So those are different ways that you can kind of leverage AI to get smarter in real time. The other thing that's really helped is, understanding, again, how to handle people is things like the DISC profile or the Enneagram. I actually used AI. I don't know what the Enneagram even is. I just have heard of it. I know what the DISC profile is, right? Which is like dominant trait or whatever. And so, like, you can kind of, a person lands on the DISC profile, and if you know what they are, then you know how they're wired and how they think and how they make decisions and how they process. Meaning, are they a gut person, like, I just listen and I trust my gut and I'm emotional, which is me? Or are they a processor and I need to see lots of evidence and I need to review data and I need to sit with things and I need to process? Because that's a different approach, a different conversation than, nope, I want to look you in the eye and talk to you, and if I feel it, we're going, right? So what I did was I used AI, ChatGPT, and I said, hey, I want to start doing the DISC profile on people, but I don't want to like make them fill out a huge thing. So in my pre-call form, my type form where I say, how familiar are you with us? Tell me about past experiences, what level of service you're looking for. Can you work in some DISC questions where, multiple choice, and then it'll give me a little profile of them. So I actually had AI write those questions, like, when you work with a marketing agency, what's most important to you, A, B, C, or D? And each one was represented a letter on the DISC, like clear communication, or I want lots of evidence and processing, or, cut the fluff, I just want to look you in the eye, like whatever the questioning was or the answers. Then it gives me a DISC profile. So prior to the call, I can know and ask the AI to evaluate the answers. And they're like, okay, this person is definitely a no BS, cut to the fluff, look me in the eye. If I'm feeling it, we're moving forward. I want to feel connected and emotional and engaged. Or they're very much process oriented, slow your roll, show me the details, go through the spreadsheets. That's the approach to take for this call. And that has helped immensely. Again, it all comes back to this simple core thing that I started this episode with, which is your ability to handle people is what makes you rich. in sales, in corporate careers, in life. And so it is worth it for you and me to keep studying how to handle people. And the best books I've ever read on that, I'll say them one more time: How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. A lesser known one from a guy named Les Giblin called How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People. Those are the two that I just go back to over and over and over and over again. But there's lots of good books. If you're in the corporate world, read Power by Jeffrey Pfeiffer. That'll really help you get up the corporate ladder much faster. So with all that said, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate you. And we'll see you soon on another episode.